Hey there, this is Chris, and I'm gonna do a quick video review. This time from some design submitted on Discord. So let's jump straight into it by checking out this particular design. The initial impression is absolutely lovely. This particular cream, I love it. I think it works great in combination with this pure white. So by alternating these backgrounds, I think you're off to a great start. The font is also beautifully styled. I mean, you can see it's really airy, it's clean. The line height is a bit much, I'll give you that. But overall, it has a very distinctive look, a very elegant look. And I do appreciate the impact it brings to the table because it's subdued, it's elegant, it's aesthetic, but it's not over the top, right? So it doesn't impact you in a negative way. It's not overbearing or overpowering in any way. So again, the initial impression is this is a lovely design, and I appreciate this cream, especially when you combine it with this color. I think again, this is very smart, especially when you factor in these headlines as well. So all these little nuances, because you can see this is different than this particular title. So all these little choices, they really do add up. And I really appreciate the attention to detail in some of these areas. Now, where things really fall apart is right from the get-go, the mission of the website is unclear. It seems that you want people to log in, which is questionable. I'm guessing you actually want people to sign up. And if that's the case, these two should actually switch places. This right here isn't vertically centered. So, well, I totally get the fact that you wanted to showcase this type of style where the photos are laid out in a different fashion. I wouldn't call it masonry, but masonry, by the way, that's a very popular term nowadays in terms of theme forest. Masonry grids, they seem to be all over the place right now. But anyway, going back on track, I don't really understand why you would choose to place this element at the bottom of the hero area. This obviously needs to be moved somewhere around this area, and you do need a clear call to action right here. So that's a big problem as far as I'm concerned. The fact that you chose to actually place it at this position. Secondly, most clients don't really like these short elements, these short components. So while this is pretty good, this is pretty nice, 700 pixels. This right here isn't that great because you have to consider the client is most likely gonna be on 1920 by 1080. So when you divide your components in such a fashion, in such a clear-cut fashion, having a short element is actually it's hard to put it into words. It's just not pleasing. It just doesn't bring enough value to the table because this is just a title and a bit of text. There's nothing really going on here. I appreciate the fact that you try to include some type of graphics, some type of photos to actually spice it up. But overall, it's not a space that's accurately used, that's decently used. Because again, 600 pixels, 400 in height, and again, it does little to nothing in terms of actually converting visitors to actual paying clients or whatever, whatever the purpose of the website is. So I would not approach it this way. And in general, clients don't really appreciate, placing this type of thing that's, again, just for informative purposes, so high up in the design. What you have to do actually is this thing right here, how it works, this should be placed much higher. Because again, in terms of importance, I feel like for the end visitor, for someone that's just browsing around, this is probably much more important than about us, right? If this right here, if the hero area doesn't actually clear things up, if the hero area doesn't tell you what this is all about, then you failed. Then the hero area isn't good enough. So about this is just not something that should be placed so high up. I understand. I actually read the text, and I understand that working with veterans and whatnot, that's really important. But again, the hero area is supposed to actually describe the mission, and this right here is not well placed. Now, in terms of service, Again, this is lovely. From a design point of view, this is great. I would have appreciated the same amount of space on the left side as on the top side. So I would actually shrink this rectangle so I could get an even margin on all three sides. Right now, I don't think this is actually even. Nope, 112 versus 127. So that's one mistake. But the bigger problem to me is the fact that, do you guys offer only two services, only cleaning and gardening? I find that curious, right? So I don't think this is actually accurate. I think this for the regular client doesn't work because you're taking up so much space to show one service. Now, again, if this is a very simple business with only a handful of services, I think that's a decent approach. But for the most clients, they would hate this approach because most companies provide 10, 12, 15 services, and that's just not doable in this particular way. I would also be aware of this issue right here. You should have cropped that out, this particular vertical line, or this line right here. Again, that's just some attention to detail. I would also make this bold, or the bolder, or actually, keep it light, but make it slightly larger, because the difference in importance, this thing right here versus this thing right here, it should be clearer. So you have to accurately state which is H1 and which is H2. And in terms of H2, you can't really do something like this, right? You gotta do something like this. Okay, so this is the type of hierarchy I'm looking for, clear cut, right? But again, lovely attention to detail. I love this line right here. I love the integration of the logo. I think that's beautiful. I love the fact that you didn't left align these two elements, right? Because you could have taken this thing right here and place it on the left side. But again, all these lovely design elements, I think you got inspiration from a great source. It's not really lacking. It seems like you didn't think it through. It seems like you took some design elements, but you didn't actually integrate them correctly. Because again, having so much space right here, everybody loves white space. Everybody loves a design that breathes, that has ample breathing room. But this right here is just over the top, and it's a pretty big mistake. And the same thing goes for this particular item right here. It's lovely when you include, you have all this text, that's pretty basic, right? And you want to spice it up with some handwritten font or some calligraphy font. That's beautiful, right? But you really gotta increase it. You really gotta make it more legible, something along these lines. Now, obviously, this isn't really executed correctly, but when you shrink it down, these types of fonts, they don't really look that well. Okay, let's see what else. I would not keep these at black. So again, you're showing some beautiful attention to detail in some parts, you're making very strong design choices in some parts, but here, leaving icons at 000, that's a grave mistake. You should never leave them at 000, because this black seems harsh. It seems, unrefined. So what you have to do is actually choose a different color, maybe something along these lines. But considering you're using this type of, let's say, brown, you could go for something like this, right? So this is the type of color code I would actually use. Something fairly dark, but you can get a hint of brown through it. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that these icons are two-toned. So two colors, but again, I think they just look too harsh, and the difference between this one and this one is significant in my book. So this is much thicker and it shows. So I would have appreciated a better looking, more consistent looking icon set. And for this circle, you could have just taken this one. You could have just removed these elements and you could have used the circle right here. But anyway, overall, this is a pretty lovely area. I would have, again, incorporated a different type of font or the bigger one, because right now, again, this isn't doing it for me, right? I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is not well executed. And moving on down, you know, when you're doing these areas one next to each other, again, it's not a good look because you're using icons that are different in style, and you're dividing the width of the website, you know, into 6 parts right here, and then into 4 parts right here. Again, most clients don't appreciate this look because it looks like a grid. It looks like a set of blocks, right, that you just assembled. So I would not put these one next to each other. It's like wearing, you know, 2 people having red sweater, and they sit next to each other. It's really striking. It's the same thing right here. It just, you know, it takes so much of your attention. It takes so much concentration to actually go through it one by one by one, because you actually have to read it. You have to actually understand it. So when you go through it, it actually requires a big level of concentration. And again, you know, your line height is so significant here, but here the text is left at auto. So again, that's really strange. That's a curious decision. And you're using a fairly big font right here, but here you've shrunk it down, even though you have maximum contrast here because you have a white base. But here you're having this cream background and a smaller font. Again, that's highly questionable. I'm not really sure why you chose to do that. And again, you know, you shouldn't really center these. Well, actually, it seems that you didn't actually center them. These should be all placed on one line like this, right? So this line needs to be extended all across the board. You can't really raise up a title like this, or center it with this thing right here. Vertically center them. You should leave the first line in line with all the rest. And if there's a second line, just place it underneath. That's how I would do it. The testimonial section, this is pretty good. Yeah, I would actually shrink this name though, because it's taking a bit too much attention from the actual quote. And the contact us form, yeah, I would definitely 100% use a white rectangle here, because right now the contrast just isn't there. This needs to stand on its own. This is probably very important for the business owner. So what you have to do is you have to make it stand out from the background, and the white base just fixes all that. You should apply a drop shadow exactly like you did here. And again, that's really gonna help. And in terms of color, I'm not really sure why you chose this particular shade. I see that you actually used it here and there. But yeah, you need something. Well, actually, if you use it on a white background, I think that might be fine. Yeah, it's gonna be decent. I would have preferred something a bit brighter, at least for this particular area, something like this. Because again, the form is so important. This is the essential part of any design. A form is usually one of the most important things that you have to nail when it comes down to a website design. Because again, it's a conversion point, and that's what clients really care about. For whatever reason, the colors here seem washed out, so I'm not really happy with it. I think you could have chosen better fonts. And right here, let's see. Yeah, I'm not really sure why you chose to finish the design like this. I think you could have benefited from a full footer, a complete footer. Right here, this isn't really, you just gave up. You just wanted to finish the design. And this right here, again, I'm not really sure what's its purpose. I can appreciate the fact that it's at the end of the end of the design, but again, it's not space well used. I think you could have structured this in a different way. I can also see that you don't have any phone numbers, you don't have any social media icons, you don't have any addresses, you don't have any contact information. So there's a lot missing. Overall, I think this design is pretty good. It's well executed in some parts. The color scheme is lovely. The fonts, especially here, are fantastic. But overall, it seems that your execution isn't on par through and through. Again, some parts are amazing. Other parts are just rushed, and you just didn't think them through. So that's my review. Sorry, it's really early in the morning here in Romania. I wanted to film it. I wanted this to be a bit shorter, but I'm really my time right now is very limited. So again, I hope this was of use to you.